You guys, I don't need to introduce Carl. He does not need an introduction. You guys know who Carl is. So let's just get on to the topics and we just go from there. So, Carl, I want to get your feedback on the visit of Mr. Wang Yi to Indonesia. And as you know, who was in China about 3 or 4 weeks ago? It was Prabowo Subianto. So that's, to me, of course, the objective of the visits from each part was for some sort of, not the same thing, for why Prabowo wants to Beijing versus why Mr. Wang Yi is in Indonesia. And to me, the importance of all this tied to what we're going to be also talking about the Philippines. In your opinion, do you think that Mr. Wang Yi trip to Indonesia is to resolve any miscommunication, misunderstanding, water dispute, territory dispute, whatever term you want to use, and the Chinese looking at it in terms of, you know what, it's a local issue, we can handle it, we don't need an outside party to get involved? What do you think?
Well, first of all, Indonesia is a very important country on its own right. It's the fourth largest, it's the fourth most populous country in the world, just after India, China, and US. And it's also the largest Muslim majority country in the world. And Indonesia has 275 million people. It's a growing market. Wow. Indonesia's economy is growing very rapidly, and it's developing ties with China. So to keep people in to give a historical context, Indonesia after the 1965 coup, it became, after the purge of the communists in Indonesia, Indonesia became a very anti-communist country under the dictator Suharto, and that's when the ties were cut off with China. And in fact, the China and Indonesia didn't restore their diplomatic tie until 1990, and then, but after that, the relationship very quickly built up. First of all, unlike many other countries in around surrounding South China Sea, Indonesia do not have a territorial dispute with China. Okay. There's no territorial dispute between Indonesia and China when it comes to South China Sea. But Indonesia is a very important member country of ASEAN, which is a country which includes all the countries of Southeast Asia. And ASEAN actually had a code of conduct regarding South China Sea that they work out with China at a multilateral level. So right now, the only one that's really having trouble, only ASEAN country that's really having trouble with China is the Philippines. And we know why that is because of Bongbong Marcos, right? Because Bongbong Marcos want to get some of his dad's money that's been frozen in by the U.S. government, and so the ties is currently Indonesia and China maintain very friendly tie under the very popular Indonesian president Jokowi. Jokowi has been serving for 2 terms. And he is due to step down because the Constitution only allows 2-term president, because they don't want a repeat of Suharto, like a lifelong dictator. So because Suharto is stepping down, he, to ensure his own political legacy, he has his own son to run as a vice president in the same ticket as Prabowo, and they won. The Prabowo and the son of Jokowi, they won the election. So Prabowo went to China just to it's a gesture to reassure the Chinese leadership that the friendly ties between China and Indonesia will continue. He will carry on the legacy of Jokowi. All the relationship that was built up, including China building the high-speed rail in Indonesia. China is one of the largest. It's the largest foreign investor in Indonesia, and it's the largest trade partner of Indonesia. And China is very important for development of Indonesian economy, because in Indonesia, with a growing population, it needs
Yeah.
a lot of investment in infrastructure. That's an area where China can help with. China already built the high-speed rail, and China is building power plants and building the telecom networks. Huawei built all the telecom networks on Bali here, and and now in parts of Indonesia like Jakarta and the downtown Bali, they already have 5G thanks to Huawei. I'm in the boondocks. I live in the jungle, so I don't get 5G yet. So there's hope. There's still hope for me. There's still hope for me. So it's in my interest to see the Indonesian Chinese cooperation continue. And so then Wang Yi came to Indonesia because Indonesia carry a very important voice in the ASEAN. Being the largest country, the most populous country, and again they again reaffirmed the friendship between Indonesia and China, and they affirmed their desire for peace and stability in ASEAN. I mean, that's what most of the country, I mean, almost everybody in ASEAN They want stability. They want stability for economic development. And Philippines is like the only ASEAN country where the mainland Chinese investment is where the U.S. investment is slightly higher than the investment from mainland China. And this is because under Bongbong Marcos, he rolled back a lot of the Belt and Road project that was originally planned to go forward. And but when I look into that, that might not even be true, because the way they separate out investment, they separate out mainland China and Hong Kong. So if you combine the total investment between mainland China and Hong Kong, it's China is still the greatest investor, the biggest investor in the Philippines. It's like double the U.S. investment into the Philippines, and a lot of the money that's invested to Philippines through Hong Kong, a lot of it actually came from like mainland Chinese companies that was listed, for example, on the Hong Kong stock market. And Hong Kong, a lot of ways, it's a back channel. It served the same purpose as it did during the Cold War. It's like a window for China to trade with the outside world. So all of ASEAN depend on Chinese investment, and the Chinese investment completely dwarfs the U.S. investment. And so it's in the interest of a lot of ASEAN countries to continue to work with China. And there was a recent survey done by a think tank based in Singapore, and it showed that majority of the people in ASEAN that's been surveyed prefer China over US.
That is correct, Carl. I looked at that survey myself, and I do have the stats for it. As a matter of fact, I put the link for one of my videos because I addressed that. You're absolutely correct, Carl. And I confirmed the numbers.
And leading that favorability is Malaysia at 75%, followed by Indonesia at 73%. So and this is a very recent phenomenon too, because before, for previous decade, the same survey shows, U.S. had a higher favorability among ASEAN countries.
That is correct.
Than China. But this is a year that flipped. And one of the major reasons is what's happening in Gaza right now. Malaysia and Indonesia, they're majority Muslim countries. They don't they really hate what U.S. is doing, supporting Israel committing genocide in Gaza. And this plays a big influence in the tilting of the favorability toward China. And so we're gonna
be talking about this one as we move forward. Before I forget, here there is one of my viewers here, Cam35, stated exactly what you said, Carl, about Indonesia continuing the last president's policies. This is to me why the Prabowo had to go to visit China first. But the visit, personally, and again, this is my personal opinion, the visit that I see Mr. Wang Yi is to ensure that whatever issue can be resolved between the two countries in light of what the Philippines is going to be doing. And we're going to get into all this as we move forward. So go ahead.
And also another thing is, China also want to ensure the relationship go forward. It doesn't want the relationship be derailed after the departure of Jokowi, the same way like it happened in the Philippines. Because during Duterte's time, Philippines and China had a very friendly relationship. But once Duterte is out of the office, U.S. scoop in to make the offer that Bongbong Marcos couldn't refuse, and that relationship flipped. So China is also want to make sure that does not happen. The stability get carried on forward in the bilateral relationship.
Sure.
But the people in other countries in ASEAN, for example, Indonesia, they understand. They can see what's going on. That's why they're affirming their ties with China, and also one of the vector of U.S. in containment of China is AUKUS, the alliance between U.S., Australia, UK, with Australia acquiring nuclear submarines. Now, Australia actually do not directly border South China Sea or China.
Yeah.
There's a big country between Australia and South China Sea, and that's Indonesia. And this is why Indonesia is not happy about AUKUS. It's like, what are you doing? You're going to make us, we don't want to be caught in the crossfire. And Indonesia certainly do not want to see a more militarized Australia. Australia already act as like a deputy of the U.S. empire in the South Pacific, in places like Papua New Guinea. Indonesia do not want, more military asset being deployed by Australia. From Indonesia's perspective, AUKUS is destabilizing in the region. In this regard, Indonesia and China has a common interest. So this is another reason they're kind of publicly taking a stand, showing, hey, we are for stability and peace in Southeast Asia. Because most of the countries in Southeast, to be frank, they're happy to trade with U.S. They're happy to have a trading relationship with both U.S. and China. They want to trade with everybody. Their policy is, we don't want to pick side. We want to be friends of all and enemy of none. We don't want to be the grass when the two giant elephants fight. Grass will get trampled. We don't want to be that grass. This is why most of the countries in the ASEAN are aligned, more aligned with China in terms of talking about preserving stability in South China Sea. It's U.S. that's been the destabilizing factor by sending these so-called freedom of navigation patrols into South China Sea. First of all, China never said China never made a claim they're going to block marine traffic in South China Sea, because that will be self-defeating, because 80% of the traffic through South China Sea is to and from China. Why would China block its own trade route? But U.S. is there. Oh, we're here to protect the trade route. And it's like that Australian parody show, basically saying, "Oh, what are we doing? We're protecting trade route. Who's our largest trading partner? China. So we're protecting our trade route with China from China." I mean, this is what U.S. is doing right now. This is completely
ridiculous. I have that one, Carl. I'm going to share it with our viewers. But before I forget, I had a conversation with someone inside Australia, someone I trust, someone who knows how the government operates. And you know what I was told? The concern that Australia now has towards both Indonesia and Malaysia, besides whatever they're doing, it has to do with the economy. They are concerned that both Indonesia and Malaysia is moving economically in the right direction. So let me share this quickly with you guys.
China. Yeah. Okay. And what exactly are we protecting?
Strategic interests.
Specifically, Colonel?
Indo-Pacific strategic interests.
Brigadier, really specifically.
Indo-Asia-Pacific strategic
You know what?
interests.
I'll say it and then you nod. Our trade routes. Yeah? And who is our number one trading partner?
Shall we use another system?
Sure. China? Yeah. So under this scenario, we're spending close to $30 billion a year to protect our trade with China from China. And that doesn't strike anyone at this table as odd?
This is a clip from an Australian comedy show like 5 or 6 years ago. And the sad thing is, it's still true today. It's even more true today.
Oh my gosh! That's too many highlights the stupidity of those in charge of foreign policy. They just don't get it.
Because I mean, like the real reason U.S. military asset in South China Sea is to show China like we can screw with your supply lines anytime. You know, we can go block the Strait of Malacca, block your major energy supply from Middle East. That's what the really purpose of this. But they can't say that. Of course, they have to say we're here for the open and free Indo-Pacific. We're here to keep the trade lines open to China. I mean, like,
doesn't make sense.
This is another but I think no matter what kind of shenanigans U.S. pull in Southeast Asia, the gravitational pull of the Chinese economy is just too great. I mean, now I came to Indonesia in 2019, and at that time, I saw like young girls listening to like Chinese rap, and they're watching like Chinese soap opera. There's already soft power, Chinese soft power already spreading in the region, along with kind of the economic power, and that will continue. That will continue to deepen with new generation. And this is nothing U.S. can do about it, because fundamentally, it's like Jerry Maguire movie. Show me the money.
The money.
Show me the money. China is actually bringing money to the table by making a lot of investment. United States is not. Economically, United States cannot compete with China for influence in Southeast Asia. Economically, U.S. can't even compete with China in a lot of other area in the world. So they have to. The only area they choose to pivot to Asia is military. Is military. Yeah. When they talk about pivot to Asia, they never talk about economic development. They talk about pivoting. And they promise. I know Joe Biden promised they're going to increase investment to the Philippines and to Malaysia, to Thailand. No. Well, I'll believe it when I see it. Because Joe Biden made a lot of promises he didn't keep. He talked about this build the world back, build back better for domestic US. Build the world back build the world better for the world. That none of that came to fruition, and he's probably going to be out of the office in 8 months.
Most likely,
who's gonna take him up on that offer?
Yeah. What concerns me the most about now the Philippines after the visit of Marcos Bongbong to Washington, which, by the way, Carl, I think he was dispatched. He was ordered to come over. That's my hunch. That's my thinking. What concerns me the most is that where this upcoming naval drills between the U.S. and the Philippines. Because for those who might not know, please do not confuse this with the exercises that just took place between the 4 countries: Australia, Philippines, Japan, and the United States. The ones we're talking about are separate. It's going to be from April 21st all the way to May 10th. This is when it's going to be. What concerns me the most, Carl, is that this is the first time those drills will be outside the waters of the Philippines. We're talking about beyond the 12 nautical miles, all the way closer to Taiwan. That's what concerns me the most. Let alone the simulation of 2 main things. One of them is sinking a Chinese ship, and second one is the takeover of an island. Of course, the simulation, we all know how it goes. We ran 18 simulations at the Pentagon We lost 17 out of the 18 against China. But that's what concerns me the most. And this coincides with what Japan is deploying a unit all the way near to Taiwan. What for? If this is not a provocation, I don't know what we call it. That's the way I see it.
I think you are correct that the Marcos visit was probably coordinated, because his visit coincided with the Japanese Prime Minister visit to Washington. And so they all can show up together for the photo op to show we're all together in containing China. And you know, that's when the Biden gave that ridiculous speech when he said, oh, the US and Japan has fought together for generations. I mean, like, what are you talking about? and you know, if anything, if you want, when it comes to Taiwan, if you want to mobilize 1 billion Chinese to be against you, the fastest way you can do it is to get Japan involved. You get the Japan involved, you know, because Japanese, you know, Japan and China has this history, you know, World War II, and also before that, Sino-Japanese. It's because the first Sino-Japanese war that China lost Taiwan to Japan in the first place as a Japanese colony for 50 years. So you want to bring Japan back up to Taiwan issue? That's good. You're gonna get like young Chinese men to signing up for PLA in a heartbeat. I mean, like you will work better than any kind of the Chinese government recruitment drive. You know, just get Japan involved in Taiwan conflict. You know, all the young Chinese men will sign up.
It'll be over. Like, well, actually, I was laughing at this speech of Fumio Kishida in U.S. Congress, and you know what he said? Oh, he said we have to prevent Russia from using nukes. Well, didn't he remember that it was the U.S. that dropped the nukes on Japan twice?
So the Hiroshima Nagasaki anniversary coming up, and guess what? Japan didn't invite Russia. They did, but they invited U.S. You know? Of course, they invite the country that did it, and so you know, this is kind of the you know, Japan has a sadomasochistic relationship with U.S. You know, like because. But when it comes to the Philippines, this particular naval exercise you're talking about, so they use a made in China ship. So the ship was originally an oil tanker ship that was made in China. It was sold off to the Philippines, and then the Philippines Navy acquired it, converted it into a supply ship. So now they use that as a target ship in the exercise. I mean, this whole thing is designed to be provocative. I mean, like, and they even advertise it as we are targeting a Chinese ship. Well, I mean, it's a made in China ship that you guys bought. You know, you can do whatever you want, but they particularly chose that as target because they wanted to be provocative. That's why they make it targeting Chinese ship and practicing taking over island. This is just a long series of provocation that the United States is doing around South China Sea and in the Taiwan Strait. And they are just trying to provoke China into some sort of reaction. Same thing like when they fly Pelosi into Taiwan. But China have been so far Chinese response to U.S. provocation has been pretty measured and calculated. You know, just like the Iranian response to Israeli strike has been very calculated and measured. You know, in response to Pelosi visit, China didn't shoot her plane down. You know, China didn't send a fighter plane to threaten his planes, but instead they waited for Pelosi to leave, and then China started conducting exercise around Taiwan, and they start carrying out patrols all around the Taiwan island, and the Chinese Air Force start flying over Taiwan island. They start to circumnavigate Taiwan island, something they haven't done before. What this is what the U.S. calls the Chinese salami slicing, or the gray zone aggression. They call it gray zone aggression because China is not attacking anyone. China is not China. And the same thing with the dispute in the Philippines. China didn't send its navy. China sent its Coast Guard ships. They're using water cannons. They're not using live ammunition. They're using water cannon. So U.S. find this very hard to accept because it doesn't give them an excuse for direct military intervention, right? How can you justify sending the U.S. Navy into a water cannon fight? In the South China Sea. I mean, like I said, they could send the U.S. Coast Guard. I mean, you have articles in the U.S. media talking about how U.S. Coast Guard can play a role to contain China. I mean, good luck, because the Chinese Coast Guard are built much bigger than the U.S. Coast Guard. So the U.S., if they're sending the U.S. Coast Guard, they're gonna get their ass kicked in the water cannon fight, because the Chinese have bigger ships and bigger water cannons. But are they going to send in the U.S. Navy to shoot missiles at the Chinese Coast Guard? I mean, that will be aggression coming from the U.S. side. So this is why U.S. find it very hard to deal with, and they call it gray zone aggression. They call it salami slicing. But in response, they just keep up escalating. They keep on escalating the provocation, hoping to provoke. They're like that little kid who like, put the finger right up your nose, like, I did not touch you. And this is why they send all those Green Berets to Kinmen Islands, a couple miles offshore coast of China. This is, again, designed to provocate. It's designed to stir up some response from China. But so far, China has handled this much more rationally than United States. China is working through diplomatic channels. We showed the Wang Yi going to Indonesia. China is trying to get other work out deals with other ASEAN countries. And I'm sure China is also keeping communication channels even with the Philippines. I mean, I'm sure there's. Because we'll just have to see how long Bongbong Marcos' antics could last, because ultimately Philippines has a growing population of 100 million. People in the Philippines, they need jobs, they need employment. Right now, a large a part of the economy is supported by remittances from abroad, or by exporting like raw natural resources, or having like outsourced service sector. That's one part Filipino economy is developing there, because a lot of the Filipinos, they speak English very well, so there's a lot of call centers in the Philippines. But those could be under threat because AI revolution. AI could replace a lot of these service jobs in the future. So the Philippines, what they really need is investment in their infrastructure, investment in their education. Like they need a lot of investment. There's one country that could do it is China. The current Chinese investment from mainland China and Hong Kong combined already doubles the amount of U.S. investment into the Philippines. So that will only go up if Bongbong Marcos sign up with the Belt and Road initiatives again, if he changes his mind. So this in the long term, what this kind of cat and mouse game in the South China Sea does not help the average Filipinos. And if anything, they keep the Filipino fishermen away from the disputed area. Because in the 2014, as part of the gentleman's agreement, Duterte also worked out with China, is that Chinese Coast Guard will allow the Filipino fishermen to fish in the disputed waters. And so now with the tensions going up, those Filipino fishermen can't go there to fish anymore. I mean, this is a real problem. But that's not the concern for U.S. U.S. is never doing that for the good of the Philippines.
Of course, I don't see that happen. I don't see that Marcos will come to his senses, as far as he's too, he's under the thumb of the U.S., especially when it comes down to the assets here in the U.S., his family asset.